What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola has this to say about Andy Ruiz's defeat to Anthony Joshua. He says the rematch defeat was understandable, but don't give him sympathy, says Chris Arreola. He says, I don't think Andy has the time to mature. I think he has to change now, okay? Now, of course, we know that Andy Ruiz had a ton of excuses on why he lost. He partied too much. He didn't focus. He didn't take it seriously. Meanwhile, Chris Arreola was drinking beers and dodging training long before Andy Ruiz aired his grits before Anthony Joshua in the rematch, okay? And Chris Arreola said this. He says he knew all about fighting his way out of hardship, but did he feel sorry for Andy Ruiz Jr.? Arreola said, absolutely not. I respect him, and I would have probably been doing the same thing. You got to remember this. 1 month he fights Alexander Dimitrenko for $10,000, $8,000, 6 weeks. Later, he's fighting for $4 million. 10 weeks later, he's fighting for $10 million. How do you expect him to be a humble man? We come from nothing. I come from nothing. Having that kind of money, I wouldn't know, and I didn't know how to handle it myself. So no, I don't have no sympathy. I understand where he's coming from, and I understand what happened. You live and you learn, okay? He says, sometimes I don't think he gives us the best chance to win, and sometimes he comes in a little too far out of shape, okay? So Chris Arreola is sympathizing with Andy Ruiz. He says, I was drinking Corona, I was partying, would show up to whenever I wanted to show up to the gym. I would come up with excuses on the way to the gym. I would say that my car needs an oil change. I need new tires. You know, there's always an excuse. Like I said, comes from having nothing and then having everything. Chris Arreola received a moment of brutal recognition after striding past Hollywood star Arnold Schwarzenegger and his basketball heroes to the WBC heavyweight title fight with Vitaly Klitschko. And of course, we know what happened in that fight. Vitaly picked him apart, you know. And Chris Arreola said, I didn't understand why people were there to watch me fight. Well, I guess we found out that night. They were there to watch Vitaly beat my butt. Okay, well, Chris Arreola, you know, he's simply calling it the way it is. You know, he's saying that he knew exactly what Andy Ruiz was doing. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly where he was coming from because he was also a Mexican American that had nothing. Then all of a sudden he had everything. Okay. You know, and it's a psychological thing you have to look into play, okay? Realistically speaking, if you're a prospect or you're in the top 20, but then you know you weren't promoted right or you didn't have the breaks from promotional companies like certain fighters do, and you do get $8,000, $10,000, okay? And then you go from getting $10,000, $8,000 to $4 million. That does change everything in your life so much, okay? And it's almost like from rags to riches, literally. But you were doing the same thing. However, the irony of it is you fight a guy and then you do enough to beat that guy. See, the difference between Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola, okay? Chris Arreola, he did have that platform. He was once there. But when he got there, he couldn't perform. So he wasn't even motivated to even make that one-hitter quitter or that one-hit wonder reality versus Andy Ruiz was able to beat Anthony Joshua on that night, okay, June 1st, Madison Square Garden. You know, he dethroned that guy and took all those belts from him, all 4 of them, okay? And Anthony Joshua took a loss. Andy Ruiz won, and his dreams came true. Then he got another check. But by the time that check came in, he was already spoiled to the notion of, hey, this shit is awesome. This is new. I don't know of this lifestyle, but I'm going to make the best of it. Okay? So he partied like a person that just won the lotto. Literally. Okay? And when he came back, he was nowhere. You could tell. He could lie all day long. You could get your trainer and all people to lie for you and say how good a shape you're in. You can get some Photoshop pictures all day long. But once he got on the scales, everyone knew exactly what was going on with him. He ain't trained for shit. The only thing he trained was lifting those turkeys and those chickens up to his mouth. Okay? That's the only thing. You know what I mean? Using Coronas as barbells. That's the only thing he really did. Okay? And Chris Arreola was saying, hey, I would have done the same thing because I've done the same thing. You know, that's why I don't feel sorry for him, because, hey, I would have done it. You have to live and you learn. You have to grow out of it. Okay. And what do I say about Chris Arreola? I think that he's empathizing, definitely. I think that he knows exactly what Andy Ruiz went through. But in the same token, I believe that misery loves company. Okay, you have to remember something. With Chris Arreola, he's going to be the next opponent for Andy Ruiz, right? Okay. And I know he was speaking from a standpoint of where Andy was versus where he is versus where he was again. But Andy, I feel, has a better resume. I think he is on a different platform, but in a similar situation. You know, the only difference between Andy is a better fighter than Chris Arreola. Yeah, they both pissed through their career and messed up opportunities. But I think Andy was thinking of more of, so, hey, I've beat the guy. I've done something that nobody else could ever do, ever again. You can never be the first guy to beat any guy that's undefeated and a unified champion. It can never be another guy. So I think he was looking at it in terms of hindsightness versus what could he possibly do again. You know, I know he figured, like, hey, I hit Joshua. He's chinny. He can't fight. He can't this. He can't that. And he was listening to everybody but his trainer besides, hey, get your ass into this gym. You know, but Chris Arreola really went into depth, you know, honestly, brutally honest about what he would do, what he would say to get out of training. You know, oh, I need an oil change and my car broke down. You know, those things like that. You know, I need new tires. You know, those are the type of things that he would say. But look, here's the thing. You got a guy like Chris Arreola. He's like an OG compared to Andy Ruiz at this point. So, because he's been around. Okay. So he could teach Andy Ruiz probably how to be more of a shitty fighter than he was before, honestly, you know. But I will say this about Andy Ruiz: he's joining Eddie Reynoso, and I think he's legitimately trying to make a change. Okay, so I don't want him to be a part of that. Hey, welcome to the club, the Chris Arreola Once Upon a Time club. That when you stepped up, you didn't make an impact. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be that guy that can come back because you showed people how good you really are. All it took is hard work, dedication, and a little faith. And that's everything that he had that night or that particular time. And he trained his ass off. And him, Manny Robles, and all of the Mexican raza, right, enjoyed that night of victory. So, I think this is the last thing that Andy needs to hear. Sure, they're familiar. He's familiar with what Andy did, but at the same time, he doesn't want a career like Chris Arreola had. But anyway, that's my counterpunch on that. You guys tell me what you think of Chris Arreola's comments. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunching. Peace.